Welcome to the Advanced Maneuvers video. My goal here is to turn good pilots into great ones. And here's the short answer, the displacement roll. This is how I turn enemies on my tail into enemies in my crosshair. Now in Heroes and Generals, all three planes fly effectively the same. That is to say that no nation has a clear advantage on turning radius or extra speed. So most dogfights play out the same way. Two planes circling each other, more or less neutral position, making barely out of plane adjustments to try and gain a slight advantage. And not much progress is ever made. This works out fine for my enemy in this situation because there's another enemy pilot somewhere, and he can just keep me tied up until he gets some assistance. We're also right next to an enemy base, so I really can't spend all day circling him in this dogfight, snipping each other's backside. But I'd like to point out that if you've seen, I've been keeping my eye on him this entire time, because I'm not sure if all the other pilots are doing that. It seems like my maneuvers would not work as well if they were paying attention and saw that I began them. So here I go to end this battle. I've initiated a barrel roll attack. This is a displacement roll, and it's going to put me right on his 6 from this neutral position. It's a loop and a roll that will complete at the same time, in this case pulling up and away from the turn. As you can see, I swing around and I'm right on his tail. He's not going to live long after that. Of course, displacement roll doesn't need to be either up or away. The key is to utilize out-of-plane maneuvers to gain the positional advantage over your opponents. Here I'm ambushed from below. I'm going to use my energy advantage from height with a displacement roll and end up right on his 6. And despite being outnumbered and attacked from behind, you'll see I quickly gain the advantage and drop one of my attackers. Of course, you don't always have to get that fancy to win the advantage. Most pilots are flying at full throttle all the time, but if you dump off some of that kinetic speed energy, you can gain a position of advantage. Here would have been a wing line overshoot, but I dropped my throttle and I'm right on his tail, though he jumped out. Never do that. You can turn a lag pursuit into an enemy kill with a quick tap on the brakes. Here I'm going to get up behind him, but he's going to have a lead on me once we start those turns. So I'm going to spend a little bit of my energy by tapping the brakes just to shorten up my turn radius, just enough to get him in my crosshairs. Now I'm going to have to do it twice before I can get my kill on him. But here's one tap on the brakes to put a few rounds into him. And as I swing back around again, I'll tap the brakes again and put him in my crosshairs to finish him off. You can also slam on the brakes hard as a last-ditch defensive maneuver. You won't need to lift the nose like that Su-27 is, because we're not in jets. This guy has me dead to rights, and I bring up the nose a little and hammer on the brakes, and there he goes right past me. He had me as good as dead, and now I'm right on his tail. Now this is only going to work if they're right behind you, and you'll usually know if they're close enough because you can hear their engine. If they're not close enough, another last-ditch effort for defense is the spiral dive. Now I wasn't actually being chased with this video, but I don't do it very often. It's mostly in use when you have no idea what's shooting at you and you just want to bug out. Basically just spiral towards the deck and pull out at the last moment you feel comfortable. Gun defense, or jinking, is mostly used against A positions. It's mostly just erratic movement. You won't dodge all the gunfire, but you're trying to dodge most of it by keeping your position unpredictable. It's also useful when there is an HE gunner behind you and a friendly behind him. If you don't have a friendly behind him, you might try the split S. Now this is your typical standard split S. It's a 180-degree turn. You roll inverted and then flip it under. But when you're fighting an HE gunner, you don't want to give him that cockpit, so you actually do a negative G split S, and it's going to cost you a little more height to pull it off. But it doesn't have to be so pretty. Under fire, it ends up looking something more like this. The goal is to get out of his crosshairs before you expose your cockpit. And now I do something that you should not do, especially when it's not one-on-one. This is a J turn. And even though I was not blown out of the air, I very easily could have been. I spent all of my energy in that stall maneuver. I'm a giant stationary target, very easy to pick off. So I'm not going to explain how to do a J-turn, because you really shouldn't. A displacement roll would have put me right on a 6 without exposing me. As shown right here, where I do a standard barrel roll attack on that guy swinging up behind me and right behind him. If you got time, roll high. If you're in their sights, roll low, and happy flying.